Okay, welcome to the first Cook Along Kitchen of 2026. I'm so excited to be here. If I haven't yet met you, my name is Shannon Parks. I am your on-site health coach through UMR. And I am a registered dietitian by trade. Super excited to be here with you guys. I love these demos every month. I love being able to not only cook for my colleagues and all of you on Zoom, but I love providing the food as medicine education. So, at the close of last year, I became certified in the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. A huge pillar of that is food as medicine. And if you tuned in to any of the demos last year, you notice I really started to fold that in. So we're going to talk about that a bit today because the highlight of today is cholesterol-free foods. Why does that matter? Cholesterol or high cholesterol is a really common problem for a lot of American adults, and it's even starting to be seen in American children. A lot of it is based around what we eat, the lifestyles that we lead, and if we can clean those things up, perhaps we can have a positive impact on our cholesterol levels. So, the meal that we're going to make today is completely cholesterol free. It is a plant-based meal as well. So if you're a plant-based eater or perhaps are venturing out into more plant-based meals, this one is for you. I have a feeling you're really going to enjoy it. Now, I will tell you, I did a little bit of TV magic, if you will, to shorten the cooking process today. So as we go over our ingredients, I'll discuss what we're using for our dish today and what I kind of did in advance in preparation so you don't have to sit here and watch me boil lentils. So let's talk about what we're going to be making. Today, we are going to make a lentil and carrot soup, which with this little cold snap we have going on right now is awesome timing to make a hearty soup like this. I love this soup because of the nutrient properties of all of the ingredients in the soup, but it also just brings such a nice pack of fiber. It's going to hold you over and make you feel fuller for longer. Lots of plant-based protein and absolutely no cholesterol. That's probably the best part. So, as always, let's look at our ingredients and what we're going to be using today. We are going to be using lentils. Now, the recipe initially calls for red lentils. Your grocery store might not have those. So, in effort to be inclusive of wherever you may shop, I went with regular lentils. So, just dried lentils here. I did cook these in advance. They take about 15 to 20 minutes being simmered to cook. So, I cooked these and my carrots in advance to save you guys the time of watching me just boil things. So, we'll be using lentils, of course. We also have carrots. My grocery store, for whatever reason, was out of whole carrots. So I went with baby carrots. We're using about 5 ounces of baby carrots. I did use a kitchen scale to get to the 5 ounce portion, so I knew kind of what I'm working with. And then if you're not using baby carrots, it's just 2 medium carrots for the recipe. So we've got our carrots here. We're also going to be using chopped onion. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am so sensitive to the sulfur compounds in onions. I stopped chopping onions live on the Cook Along Kitchen probably 2 years ago because I just cry. So I'm going to be using frozen chopped onions today. I like these a little bit better than the packaged chopped onions because that package is not going to stay as good for as long as frozen will, and I can just pull out what I need and stick the rest back in the freezer. So we've got frozen chopped onions here. If you like fresh onion and you want to chop it, have at it. But this is a nice little hack if you're like me and very sensitive. We've also got garlic here. Let me take its little plastic off, but we've got garlic here. We'll be using a little bit of garlic in the recipe as well. And then cilantro. We'll finish it off with some cilantro. You could also use parsley if you're not a huge fan of cilantro. I know for some individuals, just genetically, it tastes a little bit like soap. So feel free to use parsley if that's more up your alley. Now, talking about other kind of ingredients or components to this dish. Of course, salt and pepper to taste. Olive oil will be what we're going to use to saute our onions and our veggies in. I've got 4 cups or 1 quart of organic low sodium vegetable broth. Now, the reason I went with organic on this is because vegetable broth is obviously made from a variety of vegetables. Some of them may be on the environmental working group's dirty dozen. I don't want to risk ingestion of pesticides and all the stuff that they spray on the crops for those dirty dozen vegetables. So I go with organic. Now, that may not be your style. That's completely okay. And if you have questions about the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, feel free to reach out to me. We can talk about that a little bit more. But I've got vegetable broth here. We're going to be using this. And then some cumin and paprika. Your choice on smoked paprika or regular paprika. I think regular paprika does a little bit better in this recipe, but that's entirely up to you. And then, as promised, I told you I cooked some in advance. So I've got my cooked lentils and my cooked carrots here because those take about 15 to 20 minutes to cook and soften. I wanted to do that in advance. So, that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. This recipe does require obviously a cooktop and a pot and then a blender. I'm going to be using an immersion blender today. If you don't have one of these, you can cool the soup and put it into a blender. And once it's cooled, most blenders do not have the capacity to handle hot liquids. So just be careful with that if you are going the blender route, simply because the steam can create too much pressure inside that container when we're blenderizing hot foods, and that can cause issue with the blender exploding. We don't want that in your kitchen or here. So I'm going to be using an immersion blender, but again, totally up to you what you use. The cool thing about this recipe is you have the ability to decide how blended or how chunky it is depending on your own taste preferences. I know some of my household members do not like any sort of chunks or lumps in their soup. I am a fan of that. I think it adds a little texture, so you get to choose how blenderized it is. That being said, let's get started with our cooking demo. So I've got my pot here. It's been warming up for a little bit, so I've got it over like a medium high heat. And I'm going to add just a little bit of olive oil to this. You could also use avocado oil. I did not have any. So olive oil it is, just a little bit of olive oil, maybe about a tablespoon or so. I'm going to let that oil start to heat up a little bit. And as it does, I'll open up my onions because those are going to go in first to start softening. So we've got 1 cup of onion going in. And again, this can be adjusted to your taste. I'm going to open this guy up and I'll put a cup of frozen diced onion in. And that's roughly maybe a third of this package. And this package is about 10-ounce package. We'll put that in. I'm going to give it a quick stir to coat it with the olive oil, and it will start softening and breaking down for us. So that'll take a couple of minutes to start to soften. And while that is cooking and working for us, we'll talk about the awesome nutritional properties of onion. So onion, similar to garlic, is in the allium family. One of the things that I love about the allium family is that they are natural antibiotics for your system. So getting onion in, getting garlic in, which this recipe has both. Not only do they taste good and they smell great when you're cooking them, but they also have that antibacterial property. The other cool thing about onions is they have been studied to work towards cancer prevention. And so specifically, colorectal cancers and pancreatic cancers, studies have shown that ingestion of onions helps to reduce the risk of development of those. Now, I don't know offhand how much onion you have to eat, or if you've got to be, I think it's like Shrek who eats the onion whole. Certainly, it can't be that much, but it is neat that the food can prevent disease beginning, right? That's so neat. I also really love that onions are full of something called prebiotic fiber. So a lot of people have heard about probiotics, maybe not as much about prebiotics. Prebiotics are the fiber found in fruits and vegetables that feeds those good probiotics or the good bacteria that maybe you get from a supplement or yogurt or other fermented foods that helps to colonize or increase the abundance of those good bacteria in the gut. And I love that because it's a natural way to keep our gut balanced and healthy by getting prebiotic fibers in. So onion is a really great way to get those fibers in. And lastly, flavonoids. So the flavonoid compounds in this, that is responsible for immune support, antibacterial properties, and cancer prevention. So onions are really, really great. I actually have a story that my boys listen to called Onions Are Medicine. And so it's funny that we're here talking about this now. So I've got my onions in here. They're starting to soften. I'm going to get a couple cloves of garlic ready. So I always say I got to take off the many jackets that garlic wears. We're going to take out 2 cloves here. These cloves are pretty big, but I love the flavor profile of garlic, so I am totally okay with that. Now, obviously, some people, especially those with food sensitivities, may not be as tolerant of onion or garlic. Feel free to skip on those. It will change the flavor profile a little bit, but not tremendously. Always listen to your body and the tolerances that you have with food. Feel free to modify any recipe to make it your own. So I'm going to take the garlic. Now, something interesting about garlic, a lot of times people buy like the minced garlic, and I have totally done that. It's a huge time saver. But what we don't realize is that in that process, when it's minced and then it sits in water, it loses some of its food properties. So when we take garlic, and I'm going to smash it under the blade edge of my knife, by so doing, I am activating an enzyme in this garlic that has tons of health properties. So if you have the ability, the time, or desire, frankly, to use fresh garlic, by all means, go for it because it is a nutrient powerhouse. So I'm just going to get all my little shells off of this garlic here, and I'll do the same thing with our other piece. Now, typically, I would say mince this up really fine for garlic. However, this recipe is going to be blenderized. So I'm not as particular about the size of the chop. We're just going to roughly chop it so it can mingle with our onions and start to soften. So I'm just going to rough chop this. Doesn't have to be pretty because we're going to blenderize it. So just get a rough, relatively even chop on it. Good. And then into the pot it goes with our onion. It's going to start smelling really good in here. Imagine when I open up the door, my colleagues are going to be lined up outside the door ready to eat this because the scents in here are just too good. All right, so we've got the onion in here, we've got the garlic in here. Onion, I told you, was also a part of that, or rather, garlic was also a part of that allium family. So lots of antimicrobial properties to it. So good for us, especially when you're feeling sick, which we are at the height of cold and flu season right now. Lots of people are sick. Get that garlic in your system. If you like it, you can tolerate it. The more, the better. Apologize to your family members on my behalf for the garlic, but it's really, really good for you. So we've got those in there mingling. They're getting happy. They're hanging out. To that, we're going to add our smoked paprika, or rather regular paprika, and our cumin. So we're going to do a teaspoon of each. And these, of course, have their own nutrient properties as well. So cumin is actually a really, really good di uh, spice for digestion. It stimulates digestive enzymes, which help to break down our food. So this is going to help with bloating, gas, indigestion, and whatnot after your meals. So this is a half teaspoon scoop. So I'm going to be using 2 measuring spoons of it. We'll mix that around. And we're going to do the same thing with the paprika. Cumin is also really good because it helps with blood sugar control. So if you're pre-diabetic, diabetic, know somebody who's diabetic, or just want to work on weight management, cumin is a really, really great spice to incorporate into your diet to help with that. Paprika has tons of antioxidants, lutein and zeaxanthin, which are both really good for our eyesight. So they're going to help improve your eyesight by clearing out any damaged cells in the eye. So I love paprika for that. It's also naturally anti-inflammatory. Paprika is made from various peppers, and peppers contain a compound called capsaicin. Now, you might know capsaicin because of the cream, right? The pain relief cream or muscle relief cream. Capsaicin is naturally anti-inflammatory and really, really good for reducing inflammation and pain levels in the body. So paprika, whether it's smoked or regular paprika, is really, really good for that. So what I've done now is I've added the spices to the onion and the garlic and the oil. And what we're doing now is we're blooming our spices. So we're bringing those dried spices to life by heating them and allowing their full flavor profile to come to the surface before adding other ingredients. So I'm stirring this pretty regularly because I don't want it to burn. So be mindful of that when you're blooming your spices. You don't want to walk away from your pot or your pan because it can singe your spices really quickly. Okay, so to this, we're going to add our lentils. Now, this would be the point that you would add in uncooked lentils and chopped carrots. I'm going to just add in my cooked lentils and carrots. If they were uncooked, we would then simmer this for about 20 minutes. And that's what I was saying. Surely you don't want to watch me just simmer something for 20 minutes. So I went ahead and I cooked this last night and just stored it in an airtight container in the refrigerator. So I'm going to stir all this up, get our spices to coat those lentils and carrots, mix this up really nicely, make sure everything is well combined. And from there, we're going to add our vegetable broth. So I've got 4 cups of vegetable broth that's going to go in. And this is low sodium vegetable broth. If you make your own vegetable broth at home, no sodium is even better. Unfortunately, my store did not have a no sodium organic version. So we'll be using this one instead, which is low sodium. It's not terribly high in sodium. 120 milligrams per cup. So 480 milligrams for the whole pot, but this makes 4 to 6 servings. So really you're not taking in that much sodium, especially if you did not add any salt to the cooking process after the broth. Okay, so from here, I'm gonna turn the heat up a little bit because I do want this to get to a simmer. Obviously my lentils are chilly from being in the refrigerator and my carrots are cold. So I wanna bring those up to temp and let this simmer just a little bit. I'll pop the top on while we talk about the nutrient properties. And then once that comes to a simmer, we'll move to our next step. You can see just how easy this recipe comes to life. And I love that. I love an easy recipe. Something that I can get onto the dinner table for my family in under 30 minutes is key for me. I've got little ones, so busy lifestyle. I'm sure a lot of you have a busy lifestyle, whether you do or do not have little children or any children at all. And so this recipe is really nice for that. It could also double as a really nice lunch. You could quickly prepare this over the weekend. I have some mason jars here. This is what I typically store my soups in, and I will fill to about 3/4 of the way and stick it right in the freezer. I've got it for the next week or the next time I need a quick meal. Or I'll portion it out in mason jar containers for the week ahead and just grab this and throw it in my lunchbox on my way to work. So really quick and easy recipe here. Let's talk about the wonders of lentils. I love lentils, you guys. Not only are they really easy to make, they also take on the flavor profile of whatever you put them with. So in this instance, they're gonna have a really nice rich flavor from the spices and the seasonings that we've added to it. But I've cooked them a bunch of different ways, and you can too to make the flavor profile different. Lentils are interesting in that they are packed with both plant-based protein, so no cholesterol. We'll talk about cholesterol in just a moment, but plant-based protein, roughly 18 grams of protein per cup of lentils. That's phenomenal. This recipe uses a full cup of lentils uncooked, and that about doubles in size as you cook it. So if we were to split this into 4 servings, we're getting about 10 grams of protein per serving just based on the lentils alone. That's phenomenal. Lentils are also really high in fiber, and we're going to talk about how fiber interacts with cholesterol. So fiber, these have about 16 grams of fiber per cup, which is tremendous. That is over 50% of the way to the fiber goal for women and a little bit less than 50% of the way there for men. Fiber goal for women is 25 grams or more per day. For men, it's 32 grams or more per day. So you can see just a cup of lentils, whether you eat it in a soup type fashion, whether you have it as the main protein in a meal, they're going to give you lots of that really, really great protein. I also love lentils because they're super rich in B vitamins. So those are going to help with brain function and cellular function. B vitamins are critical for almost every single metabolic function that your cells do. So really rich in those. And then they're also rich in iron. Not a lot of foods in nature are rich in iron. I like lentils for that. Iron is responsible for carrying oxygen in our blood. And if you've ever had low iron, you know all the side effects from it. fatigue, dizziness, etc. Not great, right? So getting iron from our diet is critical, making sure we're getting enough, and getting it from food is far better than getting it from supplements, which can have a negative impact on our digestive system and cause unwanted side effects. So they're really rich in iron, which I really enjoy as well. And then the carrots. Carrots get that beautiful orange color from their antioxidant beta carotene. Antioxidants, if you've ever tuned into this show before, you're probably thinking that's my favorite word at this point. It probably is. Antioxidants go into the body, they pull out all of the damaged cells and they get rid of them. So those damaged cells are what replicate and start to create diseases like cancer and other diseases in our body. So the more antioxidant rich foods that we can eat, the better off we're going to be. Carrots are very rich in antioxidants. So this is another reason to eat the rainbow, eat variety, because all of your different produce foods that are different colors offer different antioxidants that have different roles in the body. So love carrots for that. They're also, of course, really rich in fiber since they are a plant. Vitamin A, they say rabbits have great eyesight because they eat carrots. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I do know that vitamin A is critical in maintaining good eyesight, especially nighttime eyesight. So all of your orange and yellow foods, produce foods, are going to be really rich in vitamin A and going to help improve your eyesight. Additionally, vitamin C, we think about that a lot with citrus, but it's also with your red, yellow, and orange produce foods, so vegetables included like carrots. Vitamin C helps our skin integrity and it's also going to help support our immune system. So, great thing to have this time of year with the cold and flu season upon us. And lastly, they're rich in potassium. Potassium helps with heart health function. So, I love the main staples of this dish for several reasons, all of them having to do with food as medicine and the way that they interact with the body. Let's go ahead and give this a little stir here. Looks like it's starting to heat up some. Okay, so while that's continuing to heat and come to a simmer, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about cholesterol. So you heard me say, hey, this is cholesterol-free foods. Why does that matter? I think before we even get to why does that matter, we need to have an understanding of what cholesterol is. If you've worked here at the county for any amount of time, I'm sure you've heard about our biometric screening, right? Biometric screening, part of that is getting your lipid labs done. And what does that consist of? So lipid labs are going to be consistent of cholesterol, HDL, LDL, triglycerides. So what does that mean? Total cholesterol is an equation. It's your LDL reading plus your HDL reading plus 20% of your triglyceride reading equals total cholesterol. I wish I could just draw on the video screen for you guys that equation. So that's how they come up with that number. Now let's break down the various parts of that. Cholesterol itself, whether it's LDL or HDL, is a waxy-like substance that is needed in every single cell in your body. It is responsible for creating the cell membranes for the outside of the cells. It's responsible for helping to create hormones in your body. I'm not just talking about sex hormones. Our body has over 50 different hormones that it creates on a day-to-day basis in our body. Cholesterol is needed for every single one of them. And cholesterol is imperative for digestion. Cholesterol is what makes up your bile acids in your gallbladder that help to digest foods. So you can see it has a really wide array of uses in the body. We need some cholesterol. Now, there's two kind of ways to get cholesterol. And at the risk of sounding too sciencey, I'm going to dive in. So you have endogenous cholesterol, ENDO, endogenous cholesterol. That's the cholesterol that's made within the body. So about 70% of the cholesterol circulating in your body is made by your liver. 70% is made by the liver. We'll talk about what contributes to that in a second. Exogenous, EXO, exogenous cholesterol is cholesterol that we get from our diet. Now, that's predominantly coming from animal food products, so meats and dairy and saturated fats. So all of your seed oils, palm oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, all of those types of oils, coconut oil, anything that's high in saturated fat is going to contribute to that exogenous cholesterol that you're getting from your diet, which is why we're doing plant-based meals that are completely cholesterol free. We're not getting any cholesterol from this. Now, let's talk about the two different kinds of cholesterol. So you have LDL cholesterol, low density lipoproteins. The LDL cholesterol is your bad cholesterol. This is the substance that builds up in your arteries, clogs them and hardens them over time, contributes to higher blood pressure, risk of stroke, etc. Not great stuff, right? LDL cholesterol is influenced by the foods that we're eating and the lifestyle that we have. So physical inactivity, smoking, alcohol consumption, excess carbohydrate consumption, all of those things are going to lead to producing more LDL cholesterol by the liver. Okay. The other kind of cholesterol, HDL, that's your high density lipoprotein. High density lipoprotein is your good cholesterol. This this form of cholesterol is really neat. What it does is it partners with fiber molecules from the food that you're eating, seeks out excess LDL cholesterol floating around in the body, whether produced by your liver or from the foods that you're eating, attaches it to a fiber molecule and eliminates it in your bowels. So HDL cholesterol is really, really good stuff. Now, you might be really healthy and go, well, Shannon, my total cholesterol is high. That's why I like to break down that equation for you. My total cholesterol, that should be reference range for cholesterol is under 199. I think mine is like 205. When I look at the numbers, it's because my HDL cholesterol, my good cholesterol, is very high. We want it to be over 50 for women. Mine is like 85, right? And so it's because of healthy diet. It's also improved by not smoking, little to no alcohol intake, and eating a high fiber diet. So all of those things positively influence the high HDL cholesterol. So always look at all of the different components of that equation before getting too alarmed about your total cholesterol number, because you might just be like me where you have a high HDL. The other part of your cholesterol equation is triglycerides. So triglycerides are the most common fatty particle in your blood. Above LDL, above HDL, they are the most common fatty particle in your blood, and they are really important in helping us store energy. And now, might not be in the way that we want because it helps store it as body fat, but sometimes, maybe between meals, or maybe if you're doing endurance physical activity, we need to tap into some stored energy. So it's okay to have some stored body fat on our frame, right? We need that kind of energy reserves for survival. We predominantly get triglycerides or elevated triglycerides in our body from butter, oil, animal products, excess carbs, etc., similar to your LDL. So if your triglyceride readings come back as high, that might be something that you want to look into as far as just determining if we're getting a little bit of a dietary imbalance for our cholesterol intake of the foods that we're having. Okay, so looks like this has started to simmer very slowly. So from this point, what we will do is we're going to use the immersion blender and blenderize it. And then we're going to do a little taste test and see if it needs any salt or pepper or any sort of seasoning change. So I'm going to unplug the hot pot or the hot plate here so that I don't risk circuiting the room like I have before. And we're going to use the immersion blender here. So I like to keep the top on as much as possible to avoid any splatters. I'm just going to start to slowly blenderize this. And again, if you don't have an immersion blender, that is okay. You don't have to have one to make this work. I feel like the pot top has become my shield. Um, all right, so we're starting to break down some of the carrots and some of the lentils as well. I want to keep a little bit of texture to the soup so it's not fully liquid. All right, let's give this a stir, see if we need any more blending. Just mostly trying to get rid of any large chunks that might be in here of carrot. Looks like we're pretty good on that. So we'll set the blender aside. I'm going to plug my hot plate back in so the soup can continue to stay nice and warm. And then we will do a little taste test, see how we do. Okay, so let's see how it is. That's really nice. Definitely a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper to balance it, but the flavor profile is really good. So let's add a little pinch of salt here. Now, this could totally be to taste. If you need to follow a low sodium diet, don't add any sodium. If you are okay and your body can, tolerate some salt and you're okay with salt, by all means, go for it. Of course, the less the better when we're talking about overall health, right? We want to monitor our salt intake. Give this another stir. We'll give it one more taste test and then I will spoon some out for you all to see what we're working with here. Very good. Okay, let's spoon some out. I'll bring it around and show y'all what we're working with here. This looks so yummy. Cannot wait for my friends to try it. Bring it around for you guys. You can garnish this with cilantro, which I will do, but I wanted to show you what this looks like. So you can see it's a nice even texture and consistency. We don't have to worry about any major lumps or clumps. Looks so yummy. Oh my gosh, I wish you guys could come here and try it with me. That being said, I do offer cook along kitchen demos for work groups. So if you're ever interested in me coming out and doing something like this for your work group, please feel free to reach out via email or the Wellness to You request form, better yet, and we'll get you on the schedule to come do something like this for your work group. I'm gonna add a little cilantro in here at the end. Keep it nice and fresh and light. And we'll give this a quick stir. And that's it. Voila, my friends. Cook along kitchen, even with that long explanation about cholesterol, and we're under 30 minutes. So I'm really glad you were here. Tune in again next month. We're doing another cholesterol-free meal. This time it's going to be a charcuterie board. So come find out how to make a charcuterie board without animal products and without non-dairy cheeses. Can't wait to see you there. Take care. Be well, my friends. Bye.